Makeup day. If you try to hand me anything chapter 8 after Friday, what am I going to do? I am going to laugh at you. Why is that?
Because you're done.
I'm done with chapter 8. Me and chapter 8 are done. RJ, I'm going to invade later to get ready. Okay. Okay, that is true. I am going to laugh at you. I want all my chapter 8 stuff done by the end of the week, which is a problem for some of us who are unmotivated because, let's face it, you've still not turned in the angle of elevation worksheet. You've barely looked at your law of sine and law of cosines worksheet. You're not going to do your study guide, even though you know I'm going to post the answers after you leave the room today. And the only thing you're going to get for free this week is checkpoint points, hopefully. Hopefully. That still requires somewhat of a something. And then there's the test you're going to fail. And then after Friday, I don't want any more chapter 8. We're at least all on the same page?
Yes, Mom.
Perfect. Okay, so I want to go over the bell ringer, and then I want to look quickly at your study guide, and Nick's going to let me still know because he doesn't care if I work out some of the problems for him. Okay, on the bell ringer, you have to use the distance formula. We discussed it yesterday, so I'm going to do these quickly. X2 minus X1 squared plus Y2 minus Y1 squared. When I actually solve these, if this is X1, Y1, X2, Y2, I'm just plugging in my choice answers, so I get negative 3 minus 5 squared plus negative 3 minus 1 squared. Negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8 squared. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4 squared. Negative 8 times negative 8 is positive 64. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. When you add all this together, you end up getting the square root of 80, but technically you're not done. Because 80 has a perfect square that goes into it. A nice perfect square. It is not 4, it's bigger than 4. Perfect square. 4 times 20 is 80, yes, but now there's a larger perfect square that goes into 80 that you should know off the top of your head. What times what is going to be 80? 8 times 10, yes, but neither of those perfect squares. 9 doesn't go into it. 9's a perfect square, but 9 doesn't go into it evenly. So we did. I told you it's not 4. Yes, please. 16 and 1. 16 times 5 is 80. So I know the square root of 16. It's 4. So my answer is 4 square roots of 5. Thank you, dear. If you can get to here, yay, good for you in geometry. Algebra skills should have gotten you to here. My Algebra 1 kids just had a test on that like last month. So I'm sure you had one 2 years ago. Okay, on the next one, same logic. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. I'm plugging in the distance formula. So X2 minus X1 squared plus Y2 minus Y1 squared. I end up getting negative 8 squared plus negative 6 squared. Well, negative 8 squared is positive 64. Negative 6 squared is positive 36. So I end up getting the square root of what? 100. And what is the square root of 100? 10. So it was a perfect square all along. Okay, are there any questions on 1A or B? Okay, we get to number 2. We have to draw our own triangle picture. I would pay attention because of number 2 on this, I'm not going to go over the number 2, the ones on the study guide that are similar to this. The words. Okay, so it says there's a triangle ABC. We need to draw our triangle. On the test, you're normally given the triangles, except for on angle of elevation and depression problems. So ABC, angle A is 42, angle B is 74, side A, which would be across from angle A, is 3, side B, which is across from angle B, is X. How am I going to solve this triangle? I am going to use circle buddies. What is that technique called? Law of sines. It's not a right triangle, so Pythagorean theorem, SOHCAHTOA tricks, none of those are going to work. So I have some circle buddies. It's the angle and the side across from it. The angle and the side across from it. So I should have sine 42 over 3 equals sine 74 over x. I cross multiply, I get x sine 42 equals 3 sine 74. I divide both sides by sine 42. I zoom in so people can see what math says. That's my save. What is the issue with the calculator on this? What do you need to make sure you do tomorrow on the test if you're going to type this all in your calculator at once? Make sure you use parentheses. Okay, I've said make sure you use parentheses, and then I was helping someone do a checkpoint last period, and they didn't realize something I thought you just were geniuses and knew. Your calculator, when you press sign, it automatically opens the parenthesis for the 74. You have to close that parenthesis and then close the whole set of parentheses. So technically you have to put 2 closing parentheses. If you're worried about that, if that's going to bother you, then I would do 3 sine 74, enter, divided by sine 42, enter. I would do it 2 separate steps. Press the enter button twice. That's one way to avoid the whole issue. Any questions about the ball ringers? Did anyone not get the study guide? 4.3, which ends up being, it's actually 43, so that we're going to pick A, which is 4.3. I don't know why it's weird. Nick, I'm giving your thing one. What was yesterday? Nick, I'm still going to teach you. Okay. I'm going to do this so fast. So very fast. The first half the study guide, literally the first, no, more than half, all the way through number 16. Sorry, Nick, drawing all over it. All the way till number 16 is repeat. Stuff we've already been tested on. Why are you testing me on it again, Miss Compton? Because I need to know you know it by heart before we go on spring break. Because people get real dumb after spring break. So I need to know you know it. You know it. It is technically, as discussed before, everything is not in my mind, not typing in zeros till Friday. Would you like to have already practiced this by the test tomorrow? Of course. Are there only so many hours in the day? Of course. Let's look at 1 through 6, because most people, if they made a silly mistake on the last test, it was the ones that looked like 1 through 6. On 1 through 6, when they ask for sine z, they literally want the ratio. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So I need to put 21 over 35. Nick gets most of his points for that. If he wants to reduce it to 21 divided by 7, no, 35. If he wants to reduce it, he can. 21 and 35 are both divisible by 3. So it'd be 7 over, that's not right. Why can I not divide today? It's 7 times 3, right? It's 3 over 5? 5 is 35, thank you. Isn't that 0.8?
No.
0.6.
Yeah.
Because it's doubled its 0.6. Telling you, math's off. Okay, so does Nick have to reduce that fraction? No. Nick gets all his points for those two. The mistake Nick potentially made last test, which I don't believe he did, but I can pick on him anyway since he didn't have paper in his hand, is he got this part correct, but he pressed the sine button to get this last decimal. You don't press the sine, cosine, or tangent button. Any problem without an x, no sine, cosine, or tangent button. I literally want you to type in that fraction and give me the decimal for that fraction. Are there any questions on 1 through 6? 7 through 11 are calculator plug and chug. So I need Nick to press in his calculator sine 7, sine 61, sine 75.8, and so forth. But since it is so easy and he's just typing in his calculator, I am going to be a bit of a butt in that it says 10,000, so 4 decimal places. So if Nick can't round, I am going to count off. Be careful with your rounding. So all you do for the big table is press sine, whatever the answer, and then the cosine, so cosine 7, cosine 61. Those should be easy. Are there any questions on 7 through 11? 12 through 16, still stuff you're great at. 15 and 16 are a little harder because you have to find the angle. What button do you get to press when you have to find the angle? Second, because you get to press inverse sine, cosine, tangent, whatever it is you needed. On 12, I'll set up at least one of them for you. It's opposite over adjacent, so I need tangent. So tan 37 equals x over 12. Again, if this was 5 points, Grant gets 3 out of 5 points for setting this up. 4th point for attempting to solve, 5th point for getting the right decimal. Okay, are there any questions on the first 16? Again, first 16, straight repeat. 17, finally, when we get to an issue. There are angle of elevation and depression problems on the test. There is at least one where you have to draw your own picture. Angle of elevation always happens where you're looking up. So they want us to find the angle of elevation. There's the sun. There's a 25-foot tall shadow pole, good grief, and it casts a shadow that is 42 feet long. The hardest part to me on angle of elevation and depression is drawing the picture. Again, shadows happen on the ground. That's why the 42 goes on the ground. Common sense will help you draw the picture. It still requires a little effort. And then you pick sine, cosine, or tangent depending on your picture. Since I have opposite and adjacent, I would pick tangent. Since I'm solving for an angle, I eventually get to hit the inverse tangent button. Are there any questions on 17? Flip. 18 is an angle of depression problem. Angles of depression do not happen inside the triangle. So they tell you the angle of depression is 36 degrees. That 36 happens outside, but by alternate interior angles, it also goes in this slide. That's my hint on that one. Again, you pick sine, cosine, tangent, there's an x, you solve for it. It's really just word problems doing the same thing we've been doing for forever. Forever. Okay, then we get to 19 and 20. This reminds me of the test because on the test I will say, use the law of sines. I will tell you which one I want you to use when. It says on 19 and 20, use the law of sines. So if RJ's trying to get all his points, I need to see his circle buddies. And like in the bell ringer, I need to see he set up his proportions. He cross multiplied. He solved for x. Am I giving you the law of sines? No. So you have to know sine A over A, sine B over B, sine C over C. I had a very sweet kid in here during 0 period. He's not putting the word sine. How is it law of sines if the word sine is not in your proportion? Make sure the angle goes next to sine. Don't put sine 9 over 58. No, it would be sine 58 over 9. Make sure your life is right on that. Okay, and then 21 and 22 require the law of cosines. We talked about that yesterday. I am giving you the law of cosines. So I'm going to have a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of A. I'm going to have that around the room, probably on your test. You're going to have it. All I'm looking to see is, does RJ plug the right people in the right slots? Does he understand, since X is the angle, that 16.2 has to be the A? That's what I'm looking for. If he can solve, he'll get all his points. But 3 out of 5 points are he can plug in the right stuff in the right slots. There are no questions like 23, 24, 25 on the test. However, to me, they're the best practice because you decide, do I use law of sines, do I use law of cosines? If you can't find circle buddies, you can't use law of sines. You have to have 2 circle buddies. Are there any questions about the study guide? Are there any questions about the test upcoming tomorrow? Then I'm going back to my checkpoint. If you have a question, you can ask me. Otherwise, I assume you're being productive on the